in this episode.
Like our little trauma man says, tourniquet the limbs, pack the junction, seal the box. And that's if you keep it simple, it's simple, one is lightweight, and if it's lightweight, you're going to carry it with you.
In an obtuse world, Mark and Jefe will combine military, law enforcement, and general FUD knowledge to keep you vertical. Welcome to the Live, Laugh, Larp podcast.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Thanks for joining us on another edition of the Live, Laugh, Larp podcast. I want to take just a second to say, Jefe, we miss you. I know that you have been doing some pretty awesome stuff with your training and everything that you've been into over the last month or so. So unfortunately, Jefe will not be joining us this time, but I do have a very special backup guest. Say hello, backup guest.
Hello.
Hello. It is Nan. She is the voice of the Live, Laugh, Larp intros, and so I figured since I'm just kind of hanging out in her basement most of the time, I might as well just have her on the show as well. But I also think it's actually very fitting. We're going to have a really great guest with Dark Angel Medical, and Nan is a part of the medical field somewhat.
Behavioral health.
Yep. So but needless to say, this will hopefully be thought-provoking in making sure that you guys are preparing yourself for daily life and making sure that you have some of the training that you need as well. With that being said, two things. As always, the administrative portion of the podcast. Number one is we are on every form of podcasting that is out there. So whether it be Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of the other ones out there, you can find us there. If you are not wanting to support those platforms, you can also find us on the YouTubes. If you don't like them, you can also find us on the Freedom Radio Network. I really do appreciate them having this onboarded. That's actually pretty cool. The next thing is, of course, Atero Arms. They are our title sponsor of the podcast, and we really do appreciate everything that they're doing for the channel, making it happen for you guys. And I say it every episode, I absolutely love their mounting solution for optics. I think that they may even be sending me a prototype of a optic solution for a Mosin Nagant, which would be a lot of fun to kind of modernize a Mosin. They could be it'll be absolutely ridiculous, but at the same time, that's the thing I love about those guys over at Atero Arms is they're ridiculous themselves. So there is that. Miss Nan, how are you doing? I'm
great.
You're
a little
great.
cold.
You're cold?
I got a blanket.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like the last couple of days, it's been like heat indexes of over 100, and like today's was like maybe 78. So nice cold front blowing through.
It's chilly.
Yeah, it's chilly. So, but with all of that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump right into this podcast. We've got Doc from Dark Angel Medical joining us on this episode. Doc, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are y'all?
I think that we couldn't do any better than what we were already doing at the moment. So
it'd be nice if we had hot water, but other than that,
yeah. I don't know why I didn't even think about that. We literally had to go to a neighbor's house to shower because our hot water heater decided to stop working. So thanks, Nikki. Yeah,
that's always fun.
Yeah, right.
First world problems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Doc, let's just take a second to allow you to introduce yourself, allow myself to introduce myself. That's a Austin Powers reference. But yeah, just take a few moments to introduce yourself and kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, what's going on with Dark Angel Medical, where did that come from? And I'll just turn it over to you.
All right on, man. Well, thank you. So for those of you who are not familiar with my company, I started Dark Angel Medical back in 2011, and we went live on the interwebs in January of 2012. Actually, we launched at SHOT Show, where we actually had one of the top 25 products of the year that year which was actually pretty cool when we launched our first med kit, our DARK, our direct action response kit. So all that came about as a love of medicine, all things medicine, and just wanting to put out a good product at a for folks, and also the training to go along with that product. I grew up in very rural South Mississippi, and I was born in Natchez, but we moved from there when I was a few years old and moved to where I grew up, what I call home, little town in Covington County called Seminary, and it was. It's just like it is. Like you think, if you break the name down, my daddy used to say, "Semi is half and nary's nothing." So I said, "Our town is half and nothing." So, excuse me. Grew up in a very small town. Went into the military. I was an Air Force. I was a medic, and I took a special duty assignment up to what was then Pope Air Force Base. Now it's Pope Army Airfield. Used to be Fort Bragg. Now it's Fort Liberty. It'll always be Bragg to me.
Yep.
But I was up there for several years doing special duty assignment as a flight medic, and that's where I really got into the trauma medicine, because I had a lot of good folks that we learned from the other side of the fence. It was really great to learn from those guys, because they had a lot of firsthand experience with trauma. And I went to airborne school because I was on a medical liaison team. We worked directly with 82nd Airborne, which was kind of cool. Took a special duty assignment from there to Montgomery, Alabama, at Maxwell Air Force Base at Officer Training School. Did medical readiness instruction for a while, and while I was there, I was working as a paramedic downtown. And I said, I think I want to go to nursing school. And so I went to nursing school at Troy State, graduated there in 2003, and did critical care nursing, ER nursing, things like that for a number of years. I'm still active, have an active license, but I left the bedside a few years back just to devote my full time to this. Moved from Alabama to Colorado, been out in Colorado for almost 21 years now. And we live out near the Colorado Springs area, beautiful area to live in. And I have worked at I've worked at Magpul. So I started working at Magpul in 2008, I believe. Left there in 2011, right before I started my company, and got picked up at SIG. So I've always liked firearms, always liked medicine. So I was like, hey man, that's kind of like peanut butter and jelly right there. Let's make this. Let's put this together. Or peanut butter and chocolate. And I've been working at SIG now as an adjunct part-time guy, part-time instructor since 2011 as well. So my claim to fame is I can teach people how to put holes in things or how to patch them up. So that's
there you go.
That's my big thing. But yeah, man, started Dark Angel Medical in 2011, and our primary goal was to educate people and to give them good product, and kind of like a service after the sale. There were med kit companies out there, but really nobody doing a whole lot of training, and that's what our goal was. Because if you're not an EMT basic, or you haven't had any kind of military medical training or anything like that, there was really nothing there for the civilian populace. And there's American Red Cross first aid, which is not bad. I'm not denigrating it, but it is something that it's a good jumping off point. But as far as trauma, like true pre-hospital type medicine, there was really nothing out there. So I started developing my course in 2006 and had it and finalized in 2008. Worked on it for a couple of years. Want to make sure everything was right, and I launched it actually with Magpul, which was kind of fortuitous. So our goal has just been to educate people. And I always like to say medical minions, or, make a lot of medical minions or medical missionaries out there to spread the word and raise awareness, because in a time of life situation, how far is EMS away from you? Are you anywhere where there is EMS?
Exactly.
Is it active? And so, the world's not getting any nicer, and I think this material has, over the years, has become even more relevant than it was previously. It's always been relevant, but I think it's become a lot more relevant since then, since I started teaching it. So I love to see the demographic of people that we get in the classes, because it's literally every walk of life. And it's really cool to see how I've had trauma surgeons and maxillofacial surgeons and all the way to rocket scientists in classes. So I mean, there's a very wide and varying demographic, and so medical is for everybody, especially pre-hospital stuff.
Yep, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I took a stock of this year is some of the different areas that I am negligent in when it comes to training. I've done firearms training every year for the last probably 5, 6, 7 years. But as far as medical training, about the only thing that I've done is like CPR.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Yeah. I have to do CPR every year at the hospital.
Yeah, that's
Every 3 years, 2 years. I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, I think it's 2 years.
BLS.
CPR. Yeah, the Red Cross I think is good for 2 years, maybe. I don't remember, but irregardlessly, right? That's not a word, but I knew that this was something I needed to get into, and I came across your ad on Instagram of all places, and was like, I was like, I need to get in on this. So for those of you out there, the reason why I know Doc here is because I just took his class in Wichita just about 2 months ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And fantastic class, a 2-day, 16-hour course that really dives into the nuts and bolts of stopping the bleed, and one of the things that I took away, there's multiple things, but one of the biggest things was, okay, yeah, it's really cool for us to go to the range and shoot and train with our firearms and get proficient in defending ourselves, but there are far more cases of an individual needing to render first aid because someone trips and falls and lacerates their head, or has a heart condition and is in cardiac arrest, or you see a traffic accident and you need to render first aid because you're the first person there, and those minor little things that are far more likely than you're at the mall and
someone has a heart
whack
attack.
Job, right? What's that?
I just said someone has a heart attack.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So that's one of the things that I really wanted to brush up on this year. And I thought it was just fortuitous, as you said earlier, that your course was going to be so close to my hometown that jumped right on in it. So if you could kind of give us a 50,000 foot overview of what your direct action course is about, and what's your goals for students that would partake in it.
Okay, cool. I could speak on that, I think. So direct action response course is literally, we call it everyday trauma care. If you break it down in caveman style, and that's what I try to do in the class. I try to break it down so that a large amount of what could be complicated information is easily digestible and comprehensible. I can speak to it in a cogent manner to where people can understand exactly what I'm saying. I like my daddy used to say, he was a Baptist preacher. He said, talk to people, don't talk at them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's a critical aspect of communication, especially as a teacher. But it basically gives you the ability to be a better people mechanic, as it were. I go through the body systems very detailed so that you get a good foundational level of information, and we work into injuries within those body systems and then other types of injuries, and the products in which we can use to help with those injuries and so forth and so on. So it's a very detailed course, and a lot of people say that when they see the slideshow, they're like, holy crap, this is going to be a death by PowerPoint because this manual's thick. But I try to lay it out in such a manner that they're not overwhelmed. And a lot of people say, man, I can't believe it actually went by that quick. Mm-hmm. Because they're expecting them to be, they want to cut their eye out with a dull spoon, but it just stay away. But they're surprised whenever it doesn't happen. And it's a basic recipe for life saving. And I tell people in all of our classes, this is our immediate action drills for people. This is just something that's going to help us keep them alive until EMS gets there, because we are the most critical point in that chain of survival, the most critical link in that chain of survival, to keep them alive and to keep that blood inside the body until EMS gets there. So that's basically in a very, very condensed version of what the class is. And you'll go straight from having maybe no medical knowledge to, by end of day 2, you're going to be doing hands-on practical application and doing a rapid trauma assessment, and to hopefully get you out of your comfort zone and enable you to, what our overall goal is to become more comfortable with these types of situations. I mean, you're never really going to be truly comfortable with it, especially if you don't do it for a living. But my goal is to empower them with confidence. If you empower people with knowledge is power, man. Old Francis Bacon had it right, so knowledge truly is power. And if you can empower someone with this knowledge, then they'll be a lot more liable to act in a situation versus not act. And that's our goal, is to create these I call them the by-doers, not the bystanders.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I have for you is, I've done combat lifesaver in the military, and I started combat lifesaver way back before the global war on terrorism, when the course was, here's how you give an IV. Don't ever put a tourniquet on unless it's your last resort, and a lot of the thinking has changed quite a bit. So I'm a little bit familiar with this, but for individuals who have never had any type of medical training, would you suggest that this is something that would be helpful for them just to jump on into a course like this, or do you feel that maybe they should dabble a little bit in, Red Cross CPR, or where should a beginner truly start, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I've had people who have had absolutely zero medical training, whatever, have come through the course and have left, totally confident in their capabilities. But I mean, that's a case by case basis. That's based on the individual. If somebody is like, ooh, medical's kind of intimidating, and for most people it isn't, unless you're medical, it is intimidating. I would say, hey, start out with a American Heart first aid, CPR, AED class. That's just good knowledge to have, especially, the CPR and AED portion of it. And if you want to jump into a little bit more of it, you dabble in the toe. Now we're going to put the whole foot in here. Let's do a stop the bleed class. And then if you want to really take the plunge, then you take one of our classes. And so it is kind of it's up to the comfort level of the individual. And I'm not trying to be deliberately ambiguous, or vague or anything.
Oh, sure.
That.
Yeah.
But it's comfort level individual. But I do absolutely think, and I tell people in every class, look, if you've not had these classes, here, get a stop to bleed class, get a first aid, CPR, AED class. Those are always, you can never have too much of that knowledge. And you may learn something from every place you go to. You may pick up, have another little takeaway, another little tidbit of information that could be critical in a bad situation.
And I will say that a couple different things is, number one is that the course that you have set up is daunting when you look at the course material in the book.
Yes, it
is. But number one, you present it in such a way, like you've already said, that makes it go by very quickly. And something I really do appreciate is all the movie references that you throw into your class.
Oh man, yeah. Well, I'm a nerd anyway, but I'm a nerd that travels a lot. So read a lot of books, watch a lot of movies. But yeah, I am kind of a cinephile. I love films. But it keeps it interesting. It keeps people going, whoa, what is this redneck going to say next? What's this?
Right.
What's the next reference going to come out of his mouth? But it keeps it fresh, because I've been through classes. I know we all probably have, where you're like, dear God, take me home, sweet Jesus. Let me I'd rather die than sit here another minute. And that's a horrible learning experience, man. People don't learn when you're born into tears, because they're already checked out. And that's the reason I throw so much energy and throw so much passion into the class and try to throw the humor in there, because medical is dry. It's man, it's like eating a particle board cracker in a desert, during a drought, and you're just not going to work up any spit. And it's a hard subject to swallow unless you add a little bit of humor in there. And I think that makes it go a long way, because then people are listening. They're like, hey, what's this dude going to say next? This is actually pretty funny. And then holy crap, I just learned something, because they're already listening. So that means they're engaged. They hadn't checked out. So I love doing this stuff, man. I'm passionate about it. And I tell people, if you're not passionate about doing something, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I truly am passionate about what I do. I love it.
Yep. And I do appreciate the humor, because medical training is a heavy subject. I mean,
yes,
you're there because someone's not in the best conditions.
Right, absolutely. And I say this quite frequently. We learn in the medical field. We learn through other people's misfortune. It's an unfortunate circumstance, but it's the truth. I mean, we learn through other people's misfortune, and I mean, all the tourniquet studies that have come out as a result of GWAT.
Yeah,
that's case in point right there, man. Where hey, there's a lot of casualties that have had tourniquets utilized on them, but that was also a good data points to prove that they are and should be your first line item in stopping hemorrhage from an extremity, massive life-threatening hemorrhage from an extremity. So absolutely,
yeah. And it was even interesting when I deployed to Iraq in 2003, I was still under the mindset that, when I administer or put on a tourniquet, that it should be 2 inches above the nearest joint, and that now that ideology has completely changed 100%, especially with what you've taught in your class. And I'm not going to, throw out any spoilers or anything, because you're going to have to go and take Doc's class, but I think that a lot of the training, like you've said, has really benefited from, unfortunately, these conflicts here recently. And I'm sure that even the current situations, say in Ukraine or Israel, is probably going to even provide even more information as well.
I absolutely agree with that, and it's incumbent upon me as an instructor to make sure, as a teacher, to stay current with all this stuff. So that's the reason I try to glean as much, do info as possible, because that's, in the medical field, Nan knows this, we call it, that's best practice.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to have the most current info to give the best material out there, the latest, most relevant information to our students. That's my audience. That's my consumers. And it's a big responsibility, that I take it very seriously, to give people that good info. That's what I'm supposed to do.
Yep. So let me ask you this: as far as, say, a medical kit that someone might need to have in their vehicle, obviously a good place that you can find some of these items would be at darkangelmedical.com. But what would you say is some of the bare minimum essentials that someone should be looking at having with them on a regular basis, to just be, I hate to say it like this, but be prepared?
Well, you're right though, man. You got to be prepared. We've become, as a society, like Dan said, the hot water heater, first world problems. We've become spoiled. We're so spoiled, because we're always waiting to outsource everything and waiting for somebody else to take care of the problem. And that's a very luxurious thing to have, is the ability to do that. But in a trauma situation, people, EMS is on the way. Well, what if they're not there? Mm-hmm. So I say this all the time. The best medical kit you got is the one that's closest to you or on your person. And I am a firm believer in making sure you have at least a tourniquet or two. I'd preferably two. Two is one is none. This is what I call Pocket Doc's top 5 items. So gloves, obviously, because for cooties, and You know,
AIDS.
yeah, I mean all the bloodborne pathogens, hepatitis X, whatever that one is, it's like a A10. So
Is that a new one?
I say that facetiously, but
Okay.
somebody had been talking about that, and they were like, "Yeah, there are some strains of hepatitis out there that we've yet to really identify, but we know it's hepatitis."
Great.
So I'm like, "Awesome, great, just what we needed." Zombie hep.
Mhm.
But gloves, obviously some nitrile gloves, not latex, because latex is, have to worry about allergies with that.
Yep.
A tourniquet or two, and make sure it's a real tourniquet, not something you get off of eBay or Amazon or something like that. Just go to the website darkangelmedical.com. We run sales quite frequently just to incentivize people to get this kit, but at least a couple of good tourniquets like a cat or a soft T. Those are two of my favorites. And then we want you to have some sort of hemostatic gauze, like a Quick Clot or Celox or the Keto gauze. We want you to have a pressure bandage and of some type, and we want you to have some chest seals. So gloves, tourniquets, hemostatic gauze, pressure bandages, and chest seals. And right there, you've got the recipe to stop the bleeding and start the breathing.
Yep.
And like our little trauma man says, tourniquet the limbs, pack the junction, seal the box. And that's if you keep it simple. It's simple, one is lightweight, and if it's lightweight, you're going to carry it with you. So if you can carry those few things, awesome. If you can throw a Mylar blanket in there for to keep somebody warm, that's always another good thing to add. So at a base minimum, those 5 items.
And a lot of those things can be packed very small, compact.
Yeah, there you go.
Very compact.
As they say in Scotland, it can be quite wee.
Yeah, there you go. But realistically, you can put most of those in a very small aid bag that could attach to a backpack or a purse, or in some cases, just even, it's going to sound kind of weird, but even if you know that you're going to be in a situation that you could run into something like that, you could attach to your belt or a fanny pack,
100%. Yeah.
Fanny packs are
coming
trendy.
Back.
Yeah, they're coming back. So
they are indeed. And there's a lot of good ones out there that you can put at least those top 5 items in. And like, we sell refills on our website. So one of the things we have, like our EDC kit refill, those things are tiny, man. They weigh what? Let me see. The tourniquet, the pouch, the shears. So those things, the tourniquet's 4 ounces. That's 6 ounces. It's like literally only like 4.5 ounces of material. It's got 2 vented chest seals, pressure bandage, a mini compression bandage, a pair of gloves, and a 12-foot roll of Quick Clot. And it's got the 4 of your 5 items. So then you just you can throw that little sucker, and it's about the size of a pack of cigarillos, man. It's very small, very lightweight, and you could throw that into a purse or a nylon little bag or something, a fanny pack, and you got your tourniquet, man. You got your setup right there.
Yep. And one of the interesting things that you also brought up is the tourniquet portion. One of the things that you do on the end of the second day is you lay out a number of different tourniquets to allow people to practice with ones that they weren't already using or didn't bring, or they brought to class. So like for myself, I'd never messed with the soft T, and you had one there, so I was able to mess with that. That was pretty cool. But one of the things that you did point out was the differences between a real cat tourniquet and a knockoff. And the first thing that I did when I got back home was I pulled out all of my tourniquets and looked at each and every single one of them. And I think I came across 2 that were not actual cat tourniquets. There's one that had labeling on the underside that says that it's a cat tourniquet, but it's not the actual like logo, and it doesn't have a lot number or anything like that. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
So what's the difference between a cat tourniquet and a fake tourniquet?
well, Doc, you want to yeah, just that
You,
And now
you
I'm wondering what you put in my purse.
yeah, to elaborate. Well, I mean, the new cats there are the Gen 7s, and they're noticeably beefier than the Gen 6s or other previous generations. And I have seen I've got that one fake Gen 7 that I did show y'all in class. But yeah, it doesn't have the cat injection molded on the back of it with national stock number, all that kind of stuff. Uh, Typically, what we've seen is the biggest violator is the Gen 6 cat. That's the biggest, the most copied uh, tourniquet out there is the Gen 6 cat. And if you look on the back of a true Gen 6 cat, you'll actually see it says cat. It's made in Rock Hill, South Carolina by Composite Resources. It's got the national stock number, patent number, CE stamp on there. On the strap, it'll have the manufacturing date, which is the lot. So there's a lot of different things on there you can look at, and also the buckle at the top of the buckle, or the friction adapter, if you want to be technically correct, is smooth. Whereas on all these fake ones, you'll notice they have little weighty lines in them. And on the very top of it, like I showed y'all in class. So those are some of the big things to look at. Just some of the smaller identifiers you can see on those things, and like even on the Cat Gen 7, the windlass itself even has cat on there on the windlass in a couple of different locations. So it's injection molded into that stuff. So those are some of the things that you'll see with a fake tourniquet. And also, I mean, if you see a tourniquet that's less than 25, no, it's less than $27. I mean, you're probably getting a knockoff. And if you see a 3-pack for $30, you're definitely getting a knockoff. And oh yeah, I mean, but man, it happens. It happens. That's the reason I've started doing that during my hands-on section, because in every class almost somebody in there brings in their kit, and sure enough, they have bought this kit from somebody else, from another company, or another website or whatever, and sure as shooting, there's a fake tourniquet in there, and the big thing with that is just profit margin. And I am not ever going to be a millionaire. I tell people I'm driving an 8.5-year-old pickup truck, man. I'm not in it. I'm not in it for the financial gain. I'm in it to help people have another chance at another birthday, and
So
that's it.
So let's say someone has a fake tourniquet. What are the downsides to that? Do they break easier? Do they just not do the job? What's the harm?
Yes, and yes. And the quality control on them is absolutely abysmal. The materials they use in there is substandard. They're made overseas, where there's little to no quality control, quality assurance. They're not manufactured to the standards that we manufacture them to here in the States. So the chance of having a failure is very, very high.
Okay.
Yep. And for individuals that may not just quite understand why this is so crucial, is you put a tourniquet on, and a tourniquet gets its stopping flow. I don't know exactly how to say it, but the way that it stops the flow of blood to that appendage is by pressure, lots and lots and lots of pressure. So if you turn that windlass and are able to stop the bleed, and then you hook that windlass into the retainer, and then
it doesn't hold,
or that windlass breaks because it's just polymer and it doesn't have a steel reinforcement, then now you're losing all of that tension on that extremity, which you're not stopping the bleed. So one of the things that I brought up in the class is that I've been carrying one of the EDC tourniquets from Snake Staff Systems. Say that 3 times fast, right?
I don't even know what you said right now.
But I brought that to class and asked you about it, and I really did appreciate your candid response. Is that they seem to be okay, but there's just not any data to show that they are good to go, I guess is the right way to say it. I don't know if you want to add on to that or not, but I still carry it. But I also understand that it may not do the job, and I may have to figure something out.
And absolutely, and I absolutely think that is a solid, viable option as far as a tourniquet, and the fact that it's little, it makes it more liable for folks to carry them. So, heck yeah, man. And my only concerns, I'd like to see more data on its ability to compress arteries and bigger extremities, things like that, and also that windlass. Like I was talking about, my only other concern with it is the windlass length. Is it robust enough? Is it long enough to apply the necessary amount of torque to achieve arterial occlusion? That's literally it. And that's not me talking smack about a product. I think that's a valid scientific concern.
No, absolutely. And that was a consideration that I hadn't even thought of, is the length of the windlass and how the shorter one on my snake staff systems might be too hard to turn because it's so tiny. It's only
you don't have the leverage.
It's only like 4 inches maybe, which according to Nan is long enough. But
You're all weak, ladies.
For the record, I have never said that. 6 to 8 is where it needs to be. Just gonna say.
It is. That's the concern.
He agrees.
Yeah.
It's a concern, but it is. And I say this in class too. And you might remember me saying this. Tourniquets are not a one size fits all situation.
Right.
It's a one size fits most, and I believe that's where a lot of their data with this material and their tourniquets and everything is. Hey, the majority of the population that we may encounter to have to utilize this on. So, if I had one, man, like my granddaddy said, dance with who brung you. And I would not feel undergunned, under prepared with one. I just hope that it would do the job necessary with the requisite force.
Yeah. Now, we also talked about this in your class as well, but a lot of people are probably going to bring up the question of, is a rat's tourniquet good enough?
Okay. Again, not to diminish the company or anything like that.
Of course not.
If you let's look at studies that this product participated in, it did not perform well. None of the non-mechanical advantage tourniquets performed well. So basically, any of the elastic type tourniquets, they all performed poorly during these studies, primarily because they took quite a long time to put them on. And were they successful in stopping the arterial flow? And that wasn't the case in all these situations and all these applications. So the big thing they were looking at was timing. And if you're sitting there monkeying around with something that's not very intuitive, if something's not intuitive or something's not it's just not working the way it should, and then it's going to take longer to get it successfully applied. And while you're doing that, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
You're bleeding.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. You're bleeding. Your casualty's bleeding. And if you're bleeding, obviously your dexterity is going to go down due to diminished fine motor function. Your brain's not getting the blood it needs, so you're not going to be thinking clearly. You're going to be getting weak. So that's the thing. And like there are several elastic type tourniquets out there, and none of them performed as well as a mechanical advantage, aka like a windlass or a ratchet type tourniquet did.
Yep.
So like the cat or the soft T.
Right. And I hear a lot of people's argument is like, well, I carry a cat, but I also have a rat's tourniquet because they work well on younger, smaller individuals, that they've been able to help children a lot better. I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, I've kind of stayed away from them after seeing things from like the Skinny Medic and some of these other kind
Yeah.
of social media influencers in the medical field. And then, of course, in your class, you talked about it as well, which I thought was great. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I also like is that, the information that you're putting out has quantitative data, to it, to not only explain the reasons why you would do something, but how quickly things can go sideways really
Yeah.
quick. You pointed out in your class, and I'm not going to spoil it, but you pointed out in not only some videos that you showed, but also some of the information in your book and your slideshows about how quickly someone can bleed out, and that was probably one of the most eye-opening pieces of information that I took away from that. Was like, oh, I didn't know that it was that quick.
Yeah. It's funny to see people's attitude change when we're doing the tourniquet drills. Before we go through all that, everybody's like, okay, putting the tourniquet on, not a big deal, getting the windlass on, strapping it down real tight. And then after we go through all that, when you see that portion of the class, the next tourniquet application, people are like, holy crap,
Mhm.
they get it on a lot faster, a lot tighter. You
Mhm.
see, it's a perceptual change. And I can talk about it. But when people actually can visualize it, oh man, it adds a whole new facet to the realism that's involved. And people really, I've seen people that were kind of apathetic about it. I was voluntold to be here. But when they see that, they're like they get a lot more vested in the class. And it's to me, that's awesome, because that's what I'm trying to get through to people. Is like, man, your life can literally be measured in seconds.
Mhm.
You've
Yeah.
got to respond decisively, effectively.
Yeah. And I just came back from a trip from Washington, D.C. over this past weekend. And as I'm driving home on the interstate, I drive very, very slow.
Hmm.
It's Nan's biggest pet peeve
It's
is
an
like,
ongoing joke. Him and his dad and his brother all drive the same, which, by the way, is 8 miles below the speed limit.
Oh, dear sweet Lord. You're
yeah.
one of those people.
Yes, he
I am.
is.
Well, I get great gas mileage because of it, right? But but one of my biggest pet peeves is, I'll see someone pass me on the highway and the passenger will have their feet up on the dash.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, yeah.
I cannot stand seeing that, because I've seen x-rays
Oh,
and
dude, they're horrific.
Mhm.
pictures of accident scenes of
Oh, yeah.
people, and not even a really bad fender bender. It's just the airbag deploying that's
Oh,
causing a
dude.
lot of damage as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Oh, God, that
So-
stuff, that and like people who drive with their hands on the center of the steering wheel. Um, yeah, my ex sister in law is an ER physician, and this has been years ago, her airbag, she got in an accident, and her hand over her steering wheel, and almost broke her freaking nose, man.
oh wow.
Because it came back, and she just literally backhanded herself.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But that was another piece that you brought up in your class is, where are you putting your first aid stuff,
Mhm.
and I have a system in my truck. It's unfortunately not it. It's not in it right
He
now.
has it. It's not installed at
It's
the
not
moment.
installed. I had to take it out, but I had to take it out. But it's a rack system that I can put, I can put a rifle on, and I have a medical bag attached to it as well. But it's behind the seat, and it's as far away as possible. So if I need to get to a tourniquet quick, you know,
I mean, mine's in the trunk of my car, so you're still doing better than me.
I mean, Nan, you'd be surprised how many people in class are like, yeah, my kit's like literally in my trunk, because I'm always expecting to pull over and use it on someone else, not myself.
Mm-hmm.
That was the impetus behind me creating the header, the headrest kit and the visor kit, was because I'm trying to eliminate excuses.
Yep.
for not having medical on you, because literally if you don't have medical on you or nearby you, like within arm's reach, it's a freaking excuse. There's literally no reason. And these that you don't have, should not have medical on you. And people were like, oh, I got my two mags and my two knives and my multi-tool and my flashlight and my lighter and my flint and steel and my signal mirror and my Viz 17 panel and my compass and my beard comb. Is their quote unquote everyday carry. I'm like, oh, holy crap, dude, you're gonna drown if you fall in the creek. Where's your medical? I ain't got room for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the big thing, is like, I don't have room for it. Okay, well, you got time to stop that bleed.
Mm-hmm.
And having it in a car, having your medical stuff in the car, like we talk about during the class, is imperative. It really is. Where is your closest medical in your automobile? It's critical, man, to have this stuff, because you may be the one using it on yourself or a passenger. Because what if you're entrapped and you really can't exit the vehicle to get around the vehicle to access them? Can you still access your medical kit and them right next to you?
Mm-hmm.
Or behind you? I don't know. I try to give people food for thought, man, and that's the big win. That's the big takeaway with the class, is how much food for thought did you leave with? So, I mean, obviously you've been thinking about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I was going to say, you're giving me some right now. So
Good. No, that's my goal. That's my purpose in life. I believe that's my passion in life, is to give people a perceptual change, and to be able to say, man, I never really thought about that before. Just like, okay, in your house, how many fire extinguishers do you have in your house, Nan?
2.
Yes.
Okay, and y'all know where those are, yeah?
I know where one of them is, upstairs near the microwave.
Yeah.
Is that from experiential data there? So
No, I know where it is. The second one is in the basement somewhere. It's with your stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have a trauma kit beside those fire extinguishers?
No.
Does it? I mean, and I'm not trying to call y'all out, but is it?
No. Please do.
Does it make sense to have, if you've got a fire extinguisher, what if you have a trauma kit co-located with that fire extinguisher?
I mean, in my defense, the first aid kit and everything else is 10 feet from it in a different cabinet.
Okay. So first aid is in like boo-boos and ouchies, and I cut my hand with a...
Yeah, the more serious stuff is in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, but you know where it is.
I know exactly where it is.
Okay. But a lot of people are like, no, you're more prepared than a lot of people are, because a lot of people don't even have that. But I'm like, look, if you got a fire extinguisher, put a trauma kit beside it, because we're going to use those both in a life or death situation. Just like if you go to an airport, they got an AED at a stop. They usually have a stop to bleed kit like co-located with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's just something to, man, people are like, man, I haven't really thought about it like that. I'm like, well, I'm a little bit paranoid. So I just want to make sure that I have enough stuff.
Well, you've seen some stuff too, with you.
Yeah.
You've been a
ER.
Thank you. I don't even ER, but you've been an ER nurse. Did you spend some time as a EMT? Is that right as well?
Yeah, I was a paramedic for a number of years.
Yeah. So you were on the road. You saw a lot of
nastiness.
Yeah,
exactly. Right. So that would only exacerbate the paranoia, I think.
Well, and not even paranoia at that point. It's just flat out being prepared.
Yeah.
And that's just it. Is if I can utilize my life experiences to help people be better prepared whenever life happens, then everything I've gone through and seen in the years I've been doing this, then it's all worth it. If that can help somebody make a life-saving decision when the chips are really down, and heck yeah. And you were talking about, students in class. In the last month since I was there in Wichita, I've actually had 2 students reach out with in incidences where they utilized the training to help themselves. And one guy actually saved himself.
Nice.
Wow.
So
wow.
That's rewarding to hear that, but to know that these people took it all to heart, and you're like, man, yeah, if I hadn't had that training, things could have been a whole lot different.
Yep. And you keep a tally of number of saves that
Yep.
your students have done. What's your tally up to?
197.
There you go.
Nice.
That's amazing. I mean, a lot of people will be like, "Oh, okay, 197." But just think about an auditorium with nearly 200 people inside of it, you
I
know?
know, ain't that cool, man?
Yeah, that's amazing.
I get all freaking jazzed up thinking about it because I'm like, man, a redneck from Route 2 Seminary, Mississippi had this idea and wanted to bring it out, and now almost 200 people are walking around with another birthday. Yeah, that's the ones I know of, and
Mhm.
it's
Absolutely.
So,
There's got to be a lot that you don't know of.
oh man, and it's so validating.
Mhm.
It really validates the reason I do what I do because I ain't gonna lie to you. You know, last couple of years have been difficult, and but those stories, you know, I use this to do this, and it keeps me going, keeps me motivated because I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing and getting good information out to people, and I, you know, and people are like, man, you have to pay for all that stuff for those kit replacements because we got our kit for life thing where if you use a kit, you get what you've used back if you save a life, and it's called our kit for life guarantee. And I'm like, yeah, man. I said, but man, I will gladly keep doling out replacement tourniquets and hemostatic gauze and chest seals and things like that for as long as it takes because that just means somebody else has got another birthday, and
Yeah.
that is an amazing gift.
And that's one of the things that I really took to heart from, obviously I keep on coming back to it, but your class, but also just how, it's going to sound like I'm stroking your ego here or trying to, you know, get a free class out of you or something. But seriously, the fact that you are that stand up of a guy that you stand behind your product and the things that you sell. And if you use the training that they get in your class and your products that you're willing to, you know, replace those items, I think says an awful lot about the character behind you and your company, you know?
Well, I appreciate it, man. No, and I don't take it that way at all. It's something, it's the way I look at it, man. And it's, if people trust in my little business, and it is a little business, if people trust in our little business enough to buy a kit from us, then the least I can do is thank them for buying a kit from us if they ever have to use it to save somebody's life. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like well, I'm giving back to them, but they trusted in me, and I feel it's on me to take care of them because they're taking care of us. I mean, every sale we get, every purchase that somebody puts through, that's taking care of us. That's taking care of my customer service guru Hoot, you know, and my general manager Cannon, and you know, they're taking care of me and my wife and my grandkids and things like that. So it's a pay it forward kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of bring it back to allow people to think about why this stuff is so important is in Jefe, I'm sure he's going to be listening to this and he's going to roll his eyes back into this head so hard because I'm getting ready to say, but you know, doing your area study of where you live, right? And understanding the importance of what is happening in your community to understand how much of a, dare I say, risk of something bad happening. Number one. Number two is, you know, how long does it take first responders to get to you, right?
Dude,
Yeah. It's very important. Like if I remember correctly, you said that you're outside of Colorado Springs. You're pretty rural out there. Is that right?
yeah, we're very rural. I mean, it's a volunteer fire department out here. How long is it going to get those cats to get spun up? You know, if it's bad weather or the life flight's even going to be flying. I mean, they can land a helo in my front yard or in my back pasture. But if the weather's not cooperating, are they getting out of here? Yeah. What if 911's overwhelmed, y'all?
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. It's a very good point. I mean, you're now starting to see municipalities saying that if it's not life threatening, we are not accepting 911 calls.
That's it. That's it. You're your own first responder, man.
Yep. I own some property in Wyoming, and I hope to be able to take a trip here over Labor Day weekend to spend some time out there and do some cleanup work and stuff like that. But it's an hour from the nearest hospital. The nearest town that is 15 miles away has how many in it?
35.
35 people live in the nearest town, right? There's no emergency services there, right?
Right.
So, and oh, by the way, if I'm on the low spot of my property, I have no self service,
Mm-hmm.
right? So,
Yeah.
Number one, you need to make
So
sure
you're going to hurt yourself, and you're going to climb up on the mountains to go
I'm gonna
make a
crawl
phone
up
call.
There you go.
probably, right?
Yeah.
So, but so just understanding those types of things is how long is a ambulance going to take to get out to you? That's something that I again took away from your class, because you talk about that in the class a little bit. But
Yeah.
Those are the first things that you should start thinking about when setting up some of your kits and where you put them and stuff like that too.
Absolutely. Local area study, know your indigenous flora and fauna. I mean, you may have noxious plants and weeds that you don't even know, and you're out there clearing brush, and some of the fluid, from the plants gets on your face or gets in your eyes. How do you know if it's caustic or not? Then all of a sudden your eyes are burning and stinging and swollen, and then all of a sudden you got irreparable freaking ocular damage. You know what I mean? It's that little bit of paranoia. I don't say paranoia more than just like Dan said, being prepared or living in a heightened state of awareness to where hey, these are the things that are gonna kill me, and this is my threat mitigation system. That's what it is. It's a threat mitigation, because I'm trying to keep myself on this plane as long as I possibly can.
Yep.
And so I think it's imperative upon me to tell people this stuff and make them aware, because it's little memory joggers, and I think you had that during the class. You're like, oh crap, man, I never really thought about that.
Yeah. What would you say from your time, as a paramedic and ER nurse? What would you say is probably some of the injuries that you've seen that most people don't even think about, don't even consider it being a concern? Is there anything that comes to mind when it comes to something like that?
Oh gosh, man, so many.
Where do I begin?
I mean, I remember one that came into is when I was pre-hospitals, when I was a paramedic. A guy had slipped and fallen out of his bathtub and busted his ceramic sink. And as he busted the ceramic sink, it was one of those old school porcelain sinks.
Mm-hmm.
And as he busted it, it ripped his arm open. And the dude he damn near bled to death, right there. On the floor. And there have been other instances where people actually have bled to death, or just something as mundane as prepping vegetables for supper. Hey, I want to cook some stew, and they all of a sudden the knife slips because they're thinking about the day's activities or whatever. Knife slips and they slice their radial artery open on accident.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these things. Home is a very, as we like to say, it's our safe spot, but it's a very dangerous place, and there are many accidents in the home that people aren't prepared for. So yeah, I mean, that was one that really stuck out in my head, because I was like, holy crap, this dude's damn near dead,
Yeah.
And so little things like that, if you can, whatever you can do to mitigate threat to yourself, to your well-being, to your family's well-being inside your house, do so. I'm not saying walk around with freaking child locks all everything. Walk around in a Kevlar and bubble wrap the rest of your life, but just look around you and recognize, hey, there's some potential hazard areas here that I need to address.
Yep.
So,
and just mundane, everyday type of things. I seem to remember an incident back in October where I was
processing a deer. And he yells at me and tells me to be careful when sharpening the knife. But what does he do?
So I have one. I about flayed my freaking thumb open. Yeah, I still got the scar. I cut about a quarter of an inch into my thumb from the outside of it, and
Oof.
straight down. Cut the nail right off, and yeah, it was like flayed out. And it was so funny because this was early October, and I had just told Nan. What did I tell you? You remember what I told you?
To be careful when sharpening the knife.
Yeah.
Like literally, you yelled at me, and I was like, "Dude, I am."
Yeah. So
And then he comes back in an hour later. He's like, "Nan," I'm like, "You just cut your thumb, didn't you?" He's like, "Yeah."
yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
what was
did.
by that time the evening had gotten pretty cold, and my hands had started to get cold. My fingertips started being cold because working with this meat that I'm trying to process.
Right.
Which just for everybody knows, I had the deer hanging in the garage, and I'm taking the hide off and then butchering or boning the meat. And so when I sliced into my thumb, I knew exactly what I did, but there was no feeling, so I
You
had
just-
no idea.
Yeah, you just felt impact.
Yeah. And it didn't hurt, and I looked down at it and I was like, oh yeah, that's bad. I think that's bone.
I luckily didn't see the bone, but
Yeah.
one of our good friends is a DO, and we've had enough trauma between my son skinning his knee and needing stitches and doing a whole bunch of other things that we know what to do.
Mhm.
And we soap and watered it and bandaged it up.
And that's actually a good thing, because we just did a hey Robert, can we
Oh yeah, I
can we
totally
get you on
FaceTimed him, and
FaceTime?
I'm like, can we have a telehealth appointment real quick?
It's always good to have that kind of person in your circle. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it worked
for
out
sure.
well.
So for everybody out there, find a doctor and buddy up.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are going to be your zombie apocalypse friends. That's for sure.
Yep.
So let's change gears just real quick, because I'm really interested. You alluded to it in your class, but that we had in Wichita there. But tell us a little bit about your area in Colorado. You're way out in kind of in the rural areas. Tell us about your property. Without obviously
Here's
giving
my
away too much.
latitude and
Yeah.
here's my lat line coordinate.
Right. Yeah. But
Let us nerd out and be super
Yeah.
envious of where you're at.
yeah, because like I said, I just purchased land, and hopefully one day we'll have a viable living cabin or something like
A
that.
non-rat infested
Yeah.
place to live.
Yeah, no, where we live, it's rural. It's considered a quote unquote neighborhood. People have like 6 to 12 acre plots and things like that out here. It's like little ranchettes, you know what I mean? It's like
Okay.
we got chickens in a greenhouse and a pond and a well and all that kind of good stuff. So we're fairly self sufficient, as are most of the people around here. That's kind of the I guess that's the reason people kind of move out here, because to me, cities are too peoply. And it's not that it's not that I'm antisocial. It's just I like to be away. You
You get to choose when you people.
Yeah, exactly. Then there's nothing wrong with that. But we have a nice little plot. We can see I can see Pikes Peak from our picture window, which is beautiful in the sunsets. We have some. I will say we have some great sunsets out here. My neighbors vary from 75 to 400 yards away, type of thing. So I know a couple of them really well, the ones closest to me, and so we've got they watch out for us, we watch out for them, type of thing. So we have a great little setup out here, man. Like I said, man, we got a great well, awesome water, little pond, got some fish in there. Got our chickens, got a greenhouse. I put in some solar panels, some personal solar panels, so we can produce our own electricity if need be. Generator, wood burning stove, because we get some pretty gnarly storms out here where it can get 25 below, and you can have a blizzard with like 6 feet of snow drifting all over the place. So it's it's a great little place to live, and we understand I think if you're living in the areas like that, like the place you got at Wyoming, you understand the limitations that come along with that as far as societal niceties. You know what I mean? The things we've been spoiled with, and you're
You mean like
okay,
showers?
yeah, like a hot shower, maybe indoor plumbing,
Maybe a toilet?
yeah, maybe a toilet. I don't want to use a slit trench the rest of my life. I've used
I mean,
plenty
I've got a
of
5-gallon bucket and it's working for now, but that is not my long-term
yeah,
plan.
right. That is definitely not a long-term plan for me. I'm all about living off grid, but I still want to have my creature comforts. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and that's the whole reason we did the solar and the battery wall and things like that, so that we can, even if things were to happen and we lost power for an extended period of time, which you can out here.
Yeah.
That's the thing about it. And like when we moved into this house, when my wife and I moved in this house, there was no secondary power heating source. There was no fireplace, wood burning stove, anything. So I had that stuff I had a wood burning stove put in, and it's very efficient. It keeps our house very warm. It can be 10 below outside, but it'll be 72 degrees inside the house with minimal firewood.
Nice.
So yeah, and we throw the circulating fan on, and it keeps the whole house nice and freaking toasty. So that's part of the whole preparedness thing. Is not only the medical side. Medical is one aspect. I consider medical the missing link for preparedness, because people don't think about it until it's kind of needed.
Yep.
And so it's an afterthought, unfortunately. But I was thinking, man, if we lost power and it's 10 below outside, we're going to be like freaking doing the Revenant thing up in here. You know what I mean? I'm going to be looking like for a tauntaun to slice in half with my lightsaber and crawl inside of it. And for those of you who don't know, that's a Return of the Jedi reference.
That is Empire Strikes Back.
I mean, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. They were on Endor.
Yep.
That was a speeder bike.
You're not going to you're not going to get away with that, because
My bad.
I'm looking at my Empire Strikes Back poster that's on the wall.
That was our Empire Strikes Back as my wife refers to it out here during the wintertime, the ice planet Hoth.
Yes.
So she's a beach girl, and she says, I loved you because I moved away from the beach to be close to you. So it is love. But we have a great little setup out here, but it's like anywhere you live, understand your limitations, your area limitations, should natural disasters take effect.
Yep.
Just like people living in the coastal areas, with hurricanes, and if you live in a tornado prone environment, just like Wichita, have that preparedness built into your everyday life.
Yep.
I can't emphasize that enough.
Yeah, and we've got friends that are in Florida right now. I guess there's a tropical storm blowing through.
It has passed
Florida.
Florida.
Has it?
So it hits Monday morning.
Mm-hmm. So, but just something as mundane as that. It just a few days ago, we had a pretty hellacious storm blow through here. It wasn't tornadic weather, but it was very high winds.
Yes, yeah,
could have easily taken power down. So things like, do you have some potable water hanging out that you can get to if something happens to the water, or something to that effect. I think there just here recently in Louisiana there was a tanker spill that contaminated the local water supply, or at least they thought it contaminated the local water supply. So they were advising people to boil the water before they use it.
Wow.
Just those minor little things of, do you know how to, and it's going to sound really stupid, but do you know how to boil water?
Man, I mean, that's a thing. And what if you don't have the ability to boil water? Do you have bleach? Do people know how much bleach to add to a quart or a liter of water? How many drops of bleach per gallon type of thing? And that's something that's honestly, that's critical knowledge, especially, like my brothers lived through Hurricane Katrina. They both live on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. They lived through Katrina, and it was touch and go. And my middle brother and I were talking. And he said, we were like one step away from anarchy down here, because 911 was pretty much non-existent because they had their hands full.
Yep.
So it's incumbent upon us as just good citizens to be prepared for these potential eventualities.
Yep.
Because, man, the worst thing in the world is to go, man, I wish I'd have done such and such. That's some dangerous stuff. It's like, well, I hope everything turns out well. Hope is a crap strategy.
Yep. And,
be ready.
And it's a problem when you realize what could solve the problem in that moment when you don't have the item to solve that problem,
Absolutely. I mean, training trumps complacency any day of the week. And I don't care if you are a part of a communications group and you want to get with some communications folks and learn and get your ham certification and learn how to communicate, because, man, in the military, we used to have a saying, if you ain't got comms, you ain't got crap.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the truth. So communication is one of the big cornerstones of preparedness. Communication, for intel, medical, sanitation, field sanitation, water sanitation. Those, because in a bad situation like that, if it was prolonged, disease, how much is disease going to get people?
Yeah.
So not just trauma, but we can maybe be able to survive the trauma, but then the disease or secondary infections. We could go on a whole nother show and talk about that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And I know I've heard some statistics that have been thrown out there. I don't know if they're true or not, but if there was some type of quote unquote societal collapse here in the United States, 1/3 of the population would be gone within a matter of a few weeks to a month because of simple infections.
I don't like to be a harbinger of doom, man, but I talk about that stuff sometimes, and people are like, "Holy crap, Mr. Doom and Gloom!" I'm like, man, this is real world. And one of the books, and I hope I can say this, but one of the books that I read a long time ago that really kind of spurred me into this was that book, 1 Second After, by William Forstchen.
Okay.
I think it's Forschteen.
Okay.
He's got I think it's like 3 or 4 books, but 1 second after, 1 month after, 1 year after type of thing. But 1 second after, it was like an EMP strike on the United States. And there's like one particularly heartbreaking scene in the whole book, but it goes back to what we're saying, preparedness, and think about your area that you live in. What kind of things could happen to you if you live in a desert? Like all the power goes out due to a massive demand on the power grid during an especially hot summer. I was just down in Arizona 2 weeks ago, and it was 118 degrees, dude.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You're Phoenix area, I think.
I was in Tempe, yeah, man. And I walked out of the classroom and I got in my car, and it was no crap 118 degrees outside. And I was like, holy crap. But it's a dry heat.
It is different.
It is because prior to that, like 2 days before that, I was right on the Mississippi River in Louisiana in a chemical plant, and it was 97 degrees and like 98% humidity. It was just miserable.
Yeah.
So yeah, the dry heat is definitely more tolerable, but they're both deadly, given the environment they're in and what you're doing. So it's just a matter of preparedness, man. Mm-hmm. Just like Dan said earlier, be prepared. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing nerdy about that.
And I think a lot of people get mixed up because one of the things that I really am irritated by the show Doomsday Preppers is that popularized it there for a second. It popularized the idea of, quote unquote preppers, but it, in my opinion, put them in a light that well, these are just these right-wing conspiracy theorists,
Yeah.
people that, they have an entire basement full of MREs just waiting for and hoping for, the end of the world to
Dude.
come,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not, in my opinion, that's not true at all.
Yeah. I don't hope for any of that crap to happen. Like I said, man, I like running water and toilet paper and
Mhm.
hot water, that kind of stuff. And they had, fun fact, I had been invited or considered to be on that program years and years ago, and
Oh, wow.
I politely declined. Uh, so it's one of those things. I'm not sitting there hoping for anything to happen, but it's the old adage, hope for the best and prepare for the worst.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that you did talk about there for just a second, I just want to ask you, because I'm extremely interested in this. You talked about you set up some solar panels,
Yeah.
along the lines of, being prepared, where we are hopefully one day going to be at in Wyoming. Um, there's a good possibility of living pretty much off grid,
Yeah.
at least for the cabin that I want to set up over the next 10 years or so. It's going to be a lot of wind energy and solar energy to
Good.
power certain things. How has your experience been with your solar panels? What are some of the things that you've had to reconsider since putting those in?
I've really not had to reconsider anything, man. That's been the
That's
good
good.
side. I've not had any cons. The company was great. Once we got everything going, the company was great. They're based out of Austin, Texas. They have their own proprietary type panels, which flex and bend, which is a consideration I had for the hail and everything we have out here.
Mm-hmm.
And they have like a 25-year warranty on their stuff, which is pretty much the lifespan of some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's not the composition of the panels is different than a lot of the panels you see from the metals and everything they use. So that was a big selling point for me. But what I ended up doing was calculating my peak kilowatt usage, my kilowatt hours usage during our peak months
Mm-hmm.
when it's the hottest out here. Because I basically told the dude, I said, hey, I want to be able to run my air conditioner, dude. Creature comforts, first world things.
Yep.
I want to be able to run my air conditioner off my solar panels.
And how so if you're looking at that, okay, and obviously Colorado, it gets warm. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's probably not as hot as some other places,
Yeah.
obviously. It's not Tempe. So for your area, how big of panels did you have to get to be able to do that?
I got up to 106 degrees here last summer.
Okay.
Yeah, so it gets pretty freaking toasty,
Mhm.
but I can keep my house at 67 degrees during the summertime, AC running, and I never see any usage of the grid really. My power bill is $38 a month. That's my association fees.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
So that's I mean, if I flip the off the grid switch, then I could literally power my entire house with the amount of sunshine we get. And at nighttime, it would operate off of my power wall, and then during the daytime, it would charge back up again. And I have just as an experiment, I've run my house off, I've gone off grid and have run it for several days with no appreciable change in things.
Mhm.
My power wall charges 100% every day because we get a buttload of sun out here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something
So,
that's actually surprising. You wouldn't think so in the mountains, but
well,
in
I'm out on the plains, so
Mhm.
we don't really have that. I don't really have that much interference around me, man. So I'm getting full throttle sunlight.
Well, and it's interesting that you do say that. Us being neighbors here in Kansas, we get it. You cross over from Kansas into Colorado, and it's like
You don't know the difference.
you don't know the difference. But
Exactly.
a
Well,
lot
I
of
mean,
people,
yeah,
think Colorado, and they're like, "Oh, it's like mountains all over the place."
yeah. It's like that, like Dumb and Dumber. That John Denver's full of crap. I
Yeah.
mean, it's true because where we live, we're considered high desert. I mean, I'm at 7,000 feet.
Mhm.
And so we're high desert. The only thing that changes really from in the topography coming from Kansas, like Wichita, where I am, where I taught the class out here, is just more desert scrub and higher altitude. And so we do get that good sunlight. So I have not seen any negatives from having my solar system. And I did get it ground mounted just for ease of maintenance. If there's any maintenance, that way they don't interfere with my roof or anything like that. So it's ground mounted and it catches a lot of sun, and I have been very, very pleased with it. And the fact that I can run my entire house off of it during the daytime, even with the air conditioner, with no power surges, anything like that, or drains, it's been pretty impressive, man. I'm not gonna lie. And that's what I did. I said, okay, I want to be able to run my AC. So let's do this much power and let's add another 20%. And so that's what we did. They did the math and came up with, I think it was 32 panels is what I've got.
Okay.
Out on my ground mount. And so like I said, man, I've been very, very, very happy with it.
How much space does that take up?
Oof, gosh, man.
Just rough ballpark it for me.
Roughly about 40 feet by 15 feet.
Okay.
Area, and it's elevated. Obviously they do an area survey, send a drone up and do an area survey to see the most advantageous place for this maximum sun exposure and all that kind of stuff. So it's about a 40 by 15 footprint.
Yeah. And I've seen some of these off-grid YouTube channels where I've seen people get a really actually interesting setup. They bought a 20-foot container, and they sunk it into the ground, maybe about 3-4 feet. They're on a hillside, so they had to kind of flatten it out and sink it into the hillside a little bit. The panel was about 20 feet long and I think about 10 feet high. And they had it set up on the side of the container in such a way that they could angle it towards the sun, depending on what time of year it is. And then the container then ends up being the storage facility for the batteries.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so they insulated the inside of the container a little bit to help keep the batteries warm in the wintertime, because they're up, I think they were up in like northern Idaho, so it gets pretty chilly up there.
I believe that they angled it so the snow could fall off of it as well.
Yeah.
That's what I like about the ground mounted panels that I have, is I can go out there and I've got a big freaking squeegee that I double extended, so I can go out there and clear the snow off the panels.
Yep.
And that way I can't do that on the roof.
Yeah.
That's the reason I opted for the ground.
I mean, you could.
You can do anything once, right?
Okay, Clark.
That was my one of my big things was ease of access. For myself and for maintenance, if they need to come out here and do anything. But I also, to back that up, I threw in a 24K propane generator. So that way I've got a redundancy to the redundancy to the redundancy. So the panels did go down, I was just using my power wall. Well, if my power wall drained out, then it would trip the switch to my generator. Generator kicks on. It runs my house as my power wall is charging. Once the power wall is charged, it switches back to that. So I'm not using all my propane.
Oh, so that's really smart.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to set it up to be as self-sufficient as possible, man. And that was always my goal with it. I was like, hey, in the worst case scenario, everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that's actually a good way to be. If you worst case scenario it, then you're prepared for the worst case that could happen.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's some of the things that I'm considering what to do with my setup in Wyoming is how do I go about power? One of the great things about the area that I'm in is a calm day is usually about 15-mile-an-hour wind. That's a nice calm day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, we get the same stuff out here, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got wind turbine, wind power. that's definitely a viable option.
Yeah. So having that switch that you can flip back and forth between solar or a propane generator or wind power, that's something that I hadn't considered. And
Yeah.
one of the great things is when I purchased that property, it came unbeknown to us. It came with two wind turbines. That was
We're not quite sure if they work,
Yeah.
but we have them.
They seem to look like they're brand new in the box.
Well, I'll say this too, man. As far as your battery stuff, and I did a lot of research on these things as well. I mean, look at your charge discharge cycles on a lead acid battery system versus your lithium ion battery systems, and the lifespan on those. It's just now the lithium ion batteries are obviously noticeably more expensive, but you get a much better charge discharge cycle on them. They don't build a memory like the lead acid batteries can, and you get a much longer lifespan on them. This is what I've read, and I read into this quite a bit before I ended up biting a bullet, taking a plunge on a Powerwall.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I mean, I basically got a Tesla battery, car battery mounted to my wall. So
yeah.
Let's hope that everything stays safe there.
Yeah.
Because in a perfect world, I would rather have like a little metal building, like a container with all my, my generator and my battery bank and everything like that. To have like basically a power production building. And if you're going to be going off grid, that's definitely something to think about, because you want enough to power your well pump. Or you can have, I mean, I've even seen people do a separate solar driven well pump with a battery on there as well. Plus your cistern. I don't know if you're going to have a cistern out there. All things to consider for storage.
Yep, definitely. One of the other scenarios that a buddy of mine in Missouri, who's got a bit of an off-grid living type situation, was he said that one of the things that you could do is that you could put your batteries into your pump house, and the heat from the batteries as they're charging keeps the pump from freezing in the winter. And I thought, I was like, oh, he's like, now there's other considerations you have to put into it, but that's a technique, so.
Oh yeah. There's so many cool little takeaways you can get. I mean, even getting like I've seen people get like those little tough sheds, from Home Depot, and just insulate, R9 million, whatever insulation in there, insulate the ever living crap out of them. And that's their pump house, their battery storage house. And they have a couple of solar panels on the roof that are running like a little space heater in there in the wintertime. And I mean, there's so many freaking options in there.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So, but I could geek out about this type of stuff for hours.
Man.
He's right. He can.
I love this stuff. And because, my goal was when we moved out here, I was like, I want this to be my safe space, in case something happens. I want to be as self-sufficient as possible to be able to grow my own food, have my own meat, eggs, things like that. So we know some local ranchers that raise cattle, and everything it's all worked out very well for us. So I'm very blessed to have been put in location, and now all of my kids live out here, except for just a few, but it looks like they may all be migrating this way as well. So we'll have our kids, our grandkids, everybody will be out here. My wife and I we've only been married September 1st to be 6 years. So, but we grew up together in Mississippi. I always tell the running joke in the classes, we grew up 2 miles down the road from each other, but we're not related. So that's kind of a little running joke that we have, because, we are from Mississippi and people talk about that, but it is, we're not related, not even distant
that
cousins.
You know of.
that I know of, not even distant cousins. But it's funny because she is of like mindset, and I think that's a big a big part of our success is making sure that your helpmate, your partner, your shield maiden, your backup, your your better half is as supportive of that stuff as you are, or is as interested in that stuff as you are, because that's going to make you a more cohesive team. So if something does go bad, you are going to be the most effective unit out there, because it takes a team, man. It really does. And so I'm very thankful that she's been on board with all that. She's big in it. I mean, she grew up learning she knows how to pickle and preserve and jelly and jam and all this kind of stuff and canned stuff and everything. So we're big into that. Got a vacuum sealer here at the house. So yeah, it's just, medical is just one facet of that whole preparedness dynamic. And I think the more you're prepared, the better off you're going to be in the long run.
Yeah. And I think that if people would take more consideration into just small little things like, medical aspects of it. Do you know how to purify water? We kind of touched on that a little bit. Can you plant something and, grow some vegetables that you can eat, Yeah.
How about something like this, as simple as this, some medicinal herbs? I mean, I'm a firm believer that if we suffer from it, there's something that grows out of the earth that will take care of it. I mean, there's a great book out there I reference in my class. I don't get any kickbacks from this stuff at all. It's just stuff that I found useful over time. It's called The Herbal Medic. And this guy is he's a former Green Beret medic, and he's a naturopath, and it's a fascinating book. So know your medicinal plants to your areas too, man, and see, hey, can I grow some of these things? And
Absolutely.
How do I prepare them so that if anything bad happened, I mean, just like willow bark, I mean, salicylic acid, precursor to aspirin. Good stuff.
Yep. Just for everybody's edification, everything that Doc has been talking about in this episode, whether it be the Herbal Medic or 1 Second After, those are two books that you brought up, and then of course naturally Dark Angel Medical. We'll have all of those links in the description of the podcast as per usual. So if you guys are interested in checking those things out, just find the description and you can check those out for sure.
Yeah.
All right. And that's something that you did bring up. You brought up that Herbal Medic in class, and I really did appreciate that, because that is somebody that if I remember correctly, he was a Green Beret medic. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool that he's put together a book to discuss some of the things that he's discovered, in his time, not only in the Green Berets, but how to apply natural medications, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and like the Green Berets, dude, those cats are fascinating, because the medic is like an expert in so many areas of medical, not just trauma stuff. They can do field surgery, they can do dentistry, field sanitation, bioenvironmental engineering. I mean, they they can do a sundry list of things to help people. But the way I look at it, how does that translate to us? Man, that gives us the ability to be better prepared.
Yep. Absolutely. I think we've gotten to a point that we'll probably start wrapping this up. We probably could go for a lot longer for sure.
Well, I know, man. I'm kind of nerding out myself, so I love this stuff. But I feel like it's critical information that people really need to know, and if people see you're passionate about it, they're like, oh man, crap, maybe I should check that stuff out too. And they're like, man, I had no idea, so I'm going to do that too, and it makes them better prepared. So it's a win-win.
Yep, absolutely. I sure would love to have you on the podcast again in the future, Doc. If one of the things that I did want to ask real quick is, okay, let's say that someone has taken a look at your training calendar and is able to find a direct action course to take. Where do they go from there? What would be the next step after taking Dart?
Oh man, they could look at, if especially if they're an outdoors type person, austere medicine type stuff. Look at some of the wilderness survival, I'm sorry, not wilderness survival, the wilderness medicine courses offered by the North American Outdoor Leadership Schools. It's NOLS. Particularly their little subset they have called the Wilderness Medicine Institute, and they offer a wilderness first responder, wilderness EMT, and I mean, if you do the wilderness EMT, you actually do get your National Registry of EMT basic out there. I mean, obviously these courses vary in length and complexity, but that's a great stuff. That's a great stepping off point that I always recommend in our classes, is to check those out. And if you're not interested in that kind of stuff, go get your EMT. I mean, EMT is usually a college semester at your local technical or community college, vocational college, things like that. They'll offer those courses, and it's one semester, and it'll arm you with a lot more information.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So one of the things that I also like to do to wrap up the podcast is to kind of dish it over for quote unquote 30 seconds to our guest and everybody to say, some folksy wisdom, so if you have anything for us, Doc, I'll give you, the last word here before we get out of here.
Oh man. Make yourself more of an asset than liability. That's the best advice I can give to folks. If you can find some way to give yourself that education, give yourself that advantage, that's going to make you more valuable in any kind of situation, and you're going to be a value add. And I say it all the time: medical is a true force multiplier, because we can all benefit from having better skills in that arena.
Yep, absolutely. That's awesome. Nan, I know you hate this part.
I was unprepared, so I'm just going to say, go find a dog and snuggle with a dog. That's what I've been doing this entire podcast, and highly recommend it.
Yeah, that's good. My last little bit is if you're a passenger in a car, don't put your feet on the dash. If you're a driver in a car, tell your passenger to get their feet off the dash.
Yes.
Please. I made that comment earlier. It's my pet peeve when I'm driving. People can cut me off. I don't care. It's really not going to bother me. It happens. People are, jerks most of the time. Even myself, I tend to be a jerk from time to time by accident. But yeah, man, freaking, you're your own best savior sometimes. So.
You ain't wrong, man.
Well, Doc, man, I thank you so much. I know you're extremely busy. You've been on the go for quite some time, and trying to get you scheduled for this had been a bit of a challenge. And I just really, really appreciate your time. And in addition to that, I really appreciate your course.
Thank you.
That was very well timed for me.
Thank you, man. No, it's my pleasure. And anytime you want me back on, as long as I'm in the home AO, I would love to come back on, and I really, really enjoyed it. And thank y'all so very much for having me on.
Absolutely. Now, once again, for everybody listening, I'm going to have all of Dark Angel Medical's contact information in the description of the podcast below. So if you guys are interested in trying to find a class, definitely check that out. If you need to get some medical equipment, definitely swing by and check there first. The thing that I will say is, medical equipment is not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's probably going to be a lot cheaper than a funeral. So just make sure that you guys are prepared for that.
Yep. And we are HSA, FSA eligible.
There you go.
Oh, there you go.
So real quick, for anyone that's out there that may not know, and if they don't know, it probably doesn't pertain to them, but what does that mean?
That means if you have a health savings account or a flex spending account, our medical products are eligible for purchase using those flex spending accounts and health savings accounts.
There you go.
So we have our merchant code, so that it's not a contentious thing, and we'll send you an itemized receipt showing that this is indeed medical products.
Okay, there you go. That's awesome. So get you some medical equipment, get you some training. If it's not with Dark Angel Medical, find a reputable company to get that from. And again, Doc, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you, man.
Okay.
You.
All right. We will
with
go
you.
ahead and get out of here as Brian shakes off the day. And we'll see you guys later. Don't forget to live, laugh, and LARP. See you guys.